everyone, my name is Jeff Potter and this is the first of many podcasts to be presented by Tibii Disability Support Services. Insights from Tibii will shed light on a range of challenges facing our fellow human beings. I joined the disability sector 3.5 years ago after working in sales for over 30 years. I felt it was my time in life to enable people to talk about their life challenges, empower them to achieve their goals in life, and identify ways collaboratively to work with them, not for them. Working in retail and listening to my clients' responses to questions certainly helped me provide the best suited product for them. Working in the disability sector requires a greater level of active listening than what I'd experienced previously, and the involvement of many people focused on the best outcomes for the individual concerned. The transition from retail to where I am now has certainly been challenging, but also so rewarding. My cup is being filled each and every day. So yes, we all have choices to make in life, but to be given the control to make choices for ourselves has often been based on our physical or mental state or cultural backgrounds. Insights from Tibii has been created for you as a source of information and inspiration. In the spirit of reconciliation, Tibii acknowledges the country's traditional custodians throughout Australia. We honour their connections to land, sea and community. We respect the stories, traditions and living cultures of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples on this land and commit to building a brighter future together. We also acknowledge all people who have lived experience with disability. Their voices are essential in the development of our work. I get to meet so many wonderful people in my networking role with Tibii. My guest today is Jan Cox Salvamini. Jan has lived with a partial disability down the right side of her body and a chronic lung disease for most of her life. Until the age of 3, Jan was bandaged to a frame on her back, only able to move her head. At 3 years of age, Jan began walking, but with assistive devices. A regular routine of postural drainage is part of each and every day for Jan. This daily activity prevents fluid build-up on her lungs. Not only that, but her son Lee also had his own challenges growing up. My first meeting with Jan was a coffee catch-up in Corolta Park. As I love hearing stories from those people who have made their own way in the world, in spite of the challenges facing them, I was truly inspired to hear more. One of the things that most inspired me about Jan was her positivity. So today's discussion is around self-care. And when we talk about self-care, it's important to understand that it looks different for each of us. The way I think of self-care is making sure that if I'm to have a positive impact in people's lives, then I must make sure that I'm looking after my own physical and mental health and well-being. Providing care for others can take a huge toll on the carer's well-being. If you then add a disability into the mix, then it becomes an even greater challenge. I'm sure that Jan's story will touch your heart as much as it's touched mine. Hi Jan, welcome to Insights from Tibii Podcast.
Hi Jeff. Life for me is a day-to-day, it's all good. My disability is a part of who I am and it's just a part of my life. Everybody's got something and I'm happy with my lot, quite frankly. I'm happily married to Graham for 39 years. We have an adult son, Lee, who is 38. My lung disease, I've had 2/5 of my lung removed with the disease, and it's my job now to look after my health and make sure that they don't nick the other 2 or 3.
Cool.
So that's my job in life, is to keep healthy now.
How does having a disability affect your self-care routine?
Well, with my lung disease, each night for an hour and a half, I have to do what's called postural drainage. Mm-hmm. I take 3 puffers, I have a drink of water, and there's a device that I take that's called a flutterer. Blow into that. I need to do that 100 times. Now, if I counted 1 to 100, I'd lose track. So I do it in lots of 15 and mark that down so that I don't forget that either and how many of the 15s I've done.
Excellent.
So then I lie on my side on the bed and I cup my hand like if you're having a drink of water, and I pound my side and get rid of the phlegm, coughing it up. When I'm finished after the hour and a half, I have to slow down because it's quite a awakening thing. I wash my mouth out with an antiseptic mouthwash because it's very important to keep the mouth clean.
What advice would you give to other parents of children with disabilities about the importance of maintaining their own health and well-being?
Oh, yes. Yes, Graham and I have been through this. Basically, what I really want them to do is to care for the child, but also care for yourself and your relationship. If you're a carer, you're in it by yourself and you have friends, you need to interact with your friends. If you're married, then Graham and I have date nights.
Cool.
And we go out. The very important thing we were told during Lee's sickness was to go out and not talk about the child or finances.
Yep.
And the first time Graham and I did that, we didn't know what to talk about. We just sat there and went,
Just like your first date.
It really was. But it's very important to do that, to hold a positive mindset for the child, but for one another as well, and to keep your worries away from the child, but to deal with it so that you need to talk those worries out.
Yes.
So that they don't just stick in your brain.
Communication, I think, in anything in life is very important.
Absolutely.
My next question to you is about whether or not you can share some resources or support systems in Adelaide that has been crucial to your self-care. And I know that you've got a very different answer from what our audience is probably expecting. Yep.
Well, I'm 74 years young, so we're talking back in the 60s, 50s and 60s. There were no resources for my parents, so they were really on their own. But now, thanks to the NDIS
Yep.
and places like Tibii and people like you, there are so many resources. There's one for autism. It's called amaze, amaze.org.au.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for autism, and it seems a very good site. It's for people and parents with autism. Tibii is another one, of course. That's support for independent living. They have support coordinators, and they have short-term accommodation as well as other things.
Yep.
One more thing I'd like to say at this point is if the children have siblings, Siblings Australia is magnificent because it's vitally important to have that dealt with. I rarely say this, but I'm going to say it now. My brother is nowhere in my book because I didn't get permission. We were estranged simply because he didn't understand, couldn't cope with his attention being taken away to me.
Okay.
So it's not their fault. They need that support, and Siblings Australian will do it.
Is there a time or a particular occasion where self-care actually made a significant difference in your ability to care for your son Lee?
Yes, and this is probably an answer that you're not expecting either, because I was bitten by a toxic mosquito when I was 10 months old, and that's what caused all of this. My parents were positive with me. And one of the things that they taught me was to dream the biggest and the wildest dreams and believe in them. That was to keep me happy. But some of those dreams came true, and we celebrated. And then some of the other dreams didn't come true. They sat me down and said, okay, you tried. You now know. Let it go. Look for another dream. And that was a fantastic gift that my parents gave me. Moving forward a couple of years or more, our son, when he was 6 years old, gained a very rare syndrome called Guillain-Barré syndrome. He had the slow one, which meant that he gradually lost the use of his arms and his legs.
Right.
It was a day by day. And what happened was we laughed all the way through it. Because I learnt it from my parents. Every time I had an operation, it was fun going to hospital. So I said to him, oh, your arm doesn't work. Oh, you're just trying to compete with me now, aren't you? And he laughed. And then the next time went in and he said, I've got two hands not working now, Mum. I said, you're beating me. You're going well. You're doing well. And we laughed. And then he said, I think I won. Oh, all my limbs aren't working now.
Right, yeah.
And that's what is important, to keep the spirits up, to do the mind shift from negative to positive for yourself and for your children around. When Lee was 15, He had severe chronic fatigue, and we were told to take him out of school and just look after him and let him do what he liked. And he played with computers and games, and that was fine. He actually then learnt how to make the games, and that's his business now. But it's so important to have that positiveness behind. And we had family telling me off. Graham was at work, but they were telling me off, saying, how dare you not let him be at school? But that was the advice we had, take all responsibilities off of him. And we got him recovered in 2 years.
Tibii uses the human rights platform.
Absolutely.
Jan has actually had some dealings with the Australian government and had to take a little bit further in relation to human rights. Is that a fair comment?
Yes. I don't like the word disability or disabled. I think it's ridiculous. The disc got to disappear. What I did was I derived a word called para-abled. Now, para is the ancient Greek word for beside. Mm-hmm. And that's where I see every one of us. We're equal. We just do things differently and sometimes better. So that word and parability has been around a bit. So I wrote a letter to the United Nations and asked them to consider the words. I got an email back from Canberra saying, thank you for your letter. On your behalf, we're going to put that through to our colleagues in Geneva in Switzerland. It's sat there for, what is it now, a year?
Okay.
And it will probably be another 3 or 4 years before it's dealt with, because they're very busy people, as we know.
Yeah, well, I guess you have to start somewhere, and if you don't do anything, nothing happens. So.
We all have to try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least we tried.
Jan, for the people that are out there listening to us today, what are the first steps that they should take in establishing a good self-care routine?
Be kind to yourself. And it's very, very important to your self-talk in your brain is your own private little room now that nobody outside can hear us.
Yep.
Your brain's like that. Your thinking is like that. So you need to be kind to yourself. And I have to be kind to myself. And every time I have a negative thought, they float in and I say, get lost. Go away. And I have a replacement, happy, or a dream for the future or something to replace it. And that's your first step. It's doing a mind shift. You have to do that mind shift. That's the very first, very important step.
For those parents that are out there who've got children with disability, or if they're living with a disability themselves, I believe you might actually be able to assist these people.
Yes, I'm a family disability coach and also a parability advocate. Now, my website is ahopeprogram.au. I have one-on-one, and I really like to do that. It's very important. And so I'd meet at a library. The first meeting is free, and then we sort it out. I go at their pace, and then we have 10 sessions. And then after the 10 sessions, I will keep in touch for 9 months free of charge, once a month to chat and so forth, so on.
That sounds like a very good option. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.
As we've already discussed, if you don't ask, you don't get.
That's right.
Jan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you as our guest on the Insights from Tibii podcast today. Tibii looks forward to bringing you many more inspirational moments going forward. In the meantime, you can check out our socials on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube for more tips relating to self-care. Please refer to our website, tibii.com.au. I'll spell that for you, tibii.com.au, to find out more information on the change that is needed. Until next time, this is Jeff Potter representing Insights from Tibii podcast. Thanks for listening. Tibii, or not to be, it's not the question, it's the answer.